Okay, good. Okay, we're loading the document. Okay, there's too much here. Okay, there we go. Now we're ready. So tonight, we are going to learn about blessing power, meditations to bring you closer to God through mundane acts. And we'll also continue our study of mindfulness, including the fundamental activities of mindfulness. We've covered a lot of ground so far. Look at all this ground we've covered with different forms of Jewish meditation. Now we're up to blessing power. Coming up to look forward to, we have getting closer to God through commandments and rituals. Let's see what Rabbi Kaplan has to say about blessing power, meditations to bring you closer to God through mundane acts. Okay. This is what he has to say. One of the key teachings of Judaism is that one can experience a closeness to God in anything one does. The Talmud bases this teaching on the verse, "In all your ways know him." That's from Proverbs. And says that this short verse contains the entire essence of the Torah. It teaches that no matter what a person does, he can dedicate it to God and make it into an act of worship. Even the most mundane act can serve as a link to the divine. It's almost like we can Kedushify everything we do, which is remarkable. Take a routine task, something that has to be done, like washing the dishes. It can be pure drudgery. However, if one elevates it to an act of worship, it can be an exalting experience through which one draws close to God. It all depends on one's intention. How are you perceiving the meaning of this act? When washing dishes, one can think about the fact that the dishes will be clean for the next meal. The meal will be eaten so that the family will have the strength to go through another day and perhaps gain a new and deeper awareness of God. People will recite blessings over food, making the act of eating into a sacrament. Thus, the washing of dishes, at least indirectly, can be seen as a means through which one will draw close to God in other ways. That's incredible. So he's encouraging us to think about this one particular mundane act, such as washing dishes, being a link in a chain of events. And through this chain of events, we get closer to God. So once you follow the trail of thought, okay, the dish is leading to the next meal. The meal is leading to, the meal is a place, it will fortify us and be able to do all kinds of mitzvot. We'll be making blessings over the food. So one mundane act triggers a series of other acts, all of which can lead to getting closer to God. So I don't think he means that washing the dishes won't bring you closer to God. It's just, I don't think he's classifying it just as a trigger event culminating in being closer to God. I think he's saying we can get closer to God every step of the way, from washing the dishes to putting away the dishes to then taking out the dishes for the meal, and then so on and so forth, because we can see how they all work together for a life that brings us closer to God. Each step, each moment of the life brings us closer to God. Each individual act we do brings us closer to God, and together they work and keep us closer to God, and keep us on a path where we keep connecting with God. That's what I think he's saying. Because, as he says here, the act itself can also be an elevating experience. You don't have to wait to connect. The act itself elevates you. Imagine that you are about to prepare a meal for the person you love more than anyone else in the world. Imagine that it is not just an ordinary meal, but one to celebrate an important milestone in your lives. All the love that you feel for this person is going into the preparation of this meal. It is to be a special meal with everything just perfect. Now imagine that you are washing the dishes that are going to be used for this meal. You would want every dish to be perfectly clean and shiny, without the slightest speck or spot. The act of washing dishes would then also be an act of love. This is a good way of putting it. Okay, so think for a moment of the greatest love you ever had in your life. If you have ever been deeply in love, you know that there is a stage where the mind becomes almost obsessed with the one you love. No matter what you are doing, eating, sleeping, working, the person you love hovers at the edge of your consciousness. Everything else is unimportant. It is as if you are just marking time until you can see or speak to this person again. All other pleasures in the world are secondary to the pleasure of being in this person's presence. It is possible to love God in this manner, and with even greater intensity. There is a level of love at which one constantly yearns and longs for a closeness to God. No matter what pleasures one enjoys, they are nothing compared with this feeling of closeness. True love for God can surpass even the greatest passion that can exist between man and woman. So this is profound. He's saying that we can energize the act, the mundane act, and give it huge meaning, elevate its importance, because we treat it as catering to somebody super special. It's and a cousin of this is kind of when somebody says, "Okay, we're going to eat the meal tonight, like on a Friday night, with my grandma's china that I inherited from her." And so that's in a way going to make the meal special, because I'll be thinking of my grandma. So that's like a little bit of a elevation here. And Rabbi Kaplan's talking about a gigantic elevation, because now we're trying to get God in the picture, but that's kind of like the ballpark we're in here. When a person has such a love for God, then even an act as mundane as washing dishes becomes an expression of this love. Then, the more one concentrates on the act of washing a dish, the greater and more intense this love becomes. The act itself becomes an expression of love. The more aware we become of God's love for us, the more open we become to loving God. If we concentrate on what we are doing, even an act as lowly as washing a dish can connect us to God. We may say to ourselves, now I am washing a dish because I will be sharing a meal with God, and I love God more than anything else in the world. So I also find this interesting because so many people find the idea of loving God to be difficult because, as we say, he's intangible, he's non-physical, he's creator and king. So how do you love that? So he's giving us a hint. He's saying, look at all the ways God loves you. Meaning that if you can look at your life as God bringing you opportunities, giving you solutions, helping you deal, Melech, Ozer, Umoshia, Umogain, all the ways God supports you, then it's like, wow, this guy really loves me. So that can help you engender a reciprocal feeling somehow. So he's given insight into how you start loving God because start appreciating the things in your life as being acts of love from him. That's very insightful. Even a mundane act can thus become a vehicle to connect God's love for us to our love for him. It is as if God's love is on one side, our love is on the other, and the act is in the middle. So that's another key piece of the puzzle. There's a connection there. What do you mean to love? How do you love God? Well, you love God through a a vehicle to connect with him, and the vehicle are these steps we take in everyday life. The mitzvot we perform, that's the stuff we do, can be a connector. This is reminiscent of our discussion of the Shema. As noted there, the prayer right before the Shema ends with a statement of God's love for Israel. After the Shema, we say, you shall love God, your Lord, with all your heart, and so on. We say how the Shema, as the expression of God's unity, bridge these two loves. Therefore, when a person wishes to make an action represent the connection between the two loves, the action itself must be an expression of God's unity. This can be understood in the following manner. All right, now he's getting a little bit metaphysical, but he does it well. So let's just finish up and then we'll recap. This is his thinking. If God is one, then he and his will must also be one. Since God is absolutely one, then he must be identical with his will. On the other hand, things exist only because God wills them to exist. If God did not will an object to exist, it would simply stop existing. God gave each thing existence through his will, and it is only through his will that it can continue to exist. So this implies that God's will is in everything. However, if God is identical with his will, then God must also be in everything. This is where I don't get it. Therefore, every action and everything must be permeated with God's essence. This is where I lose him. But he's trying to put together a logical formula to show us that God is right here to connect with. So he's kind of saying it's not like we have God and God has a will, because the founding principle of our understanding God is there's no parts of God. It's not like God and his will. God is his will and his will is God. Okay. So they're the same. Okay. And that's idea number one. Idea number two is, since God is the creator and king, then his will is everywhere, meaning that nothing occurs in this universe without God's will. And if God didn't infuse it with his will, so to speak, it wouldn't be there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Oh, okay. So he's saying if God and his will are the same thing, and it's God's will that is responsible for everything existing, then God must be behind everything existing. So everything that exists has God right there. I don't understand the idea of his being an essence. How could he have an essence? This is where he loses me. If he's unified, then you can't have God and his essence. So maybe he deviated from the logic there, but the point is he's trying to cleverly use logic to basically say, with God being creator and master, and then everything we're doing, God's like right there doing it with us, type of thing. That's kind of what I get out of this. Okay, so now imagine that you are washing the dishes. You are concentrating on the act of washing, clearing the mind of all other thoughts. Okay, so he's bringing in the meditation skills that we've been discussing. You've got to be able to focus on what you're doing. Instead of focusing on the breath, you're focusing on the washing of the dishes and paying attention only to that. Any other thought that enters the mind is gently pushed aside so that the task at hand totally fills the mind. Just like if you lose the focus on your breath, go back to the breath. If you lose the focus on the dish, go back to the dish. You are totally aware of the act you are doing, and as far as you are concerned, nothing else exists in the universe. That would be a nice product of your meditation. Concentrate for a moment on a dish and realize that it is an expression of God's will and essence. That's like the cosmic picture. It is, in the sense that nothing exists without God infusing it with its existence. That's what the creator slash king slash life giver does. And he's also bringing a physical object into the cosmos, meaning that even a physical dish, we know from basic science, is a mechanics and physics, and it's part of a system. If you broke a dish, eventually it would disintegrate and become part of the environment, type of thing. So it's part of a system. So even things that we think are just physical are part of this whole universe that God sustains. Although it may be hidden, there is a spark of the divine in the dish. And again, I can't relate to that because it's deviating from his whole unity concept, but we'll just treat it metaphorically for now. There was also a spark of the divine in the water with which you were washing the dish. When a person develops such an awareness, then even the most mundane act can become an intimate experience of the divine. Okay, so we're treating this metaphorically. Okay, so what I'm trying to get a grip on is this unity principle, which he keeps promoting and saying, okay, God is one, and the one being sustains Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed. He sustains everything with love, with kindness. Okay, so that means I and the dish and the water and the sink and the soap are all being sustained by God. We're together in this. Okay, I think that's kind of like a ballpark. This concept is manifestly more explicit in Jewish teachings regarding eating. It is taught that when a person eats, he should concentrate totally on the food and the experience of eating it, clearing the mind of all other thoughts. He should have in mind that the taste of the food is also an expression of the divine in the food. Again, okay. And that by eating it, he's incorporating the spark of the divine into his body. Okay, again, metaphorically, because God's not in pieces. Okay. A person can also have in mind that he will dedicate the energy that he will obtain from this food to God's service. It is taught that when a person does this, it is counted as if the food he is eating is a sacrifice on the great altar in Jerusalem. Therefore, eating itself can be a form of meditation, as well as a means to which one can draw closer to God. It is for this reason that it was ordained that a blessing be recited before one begins eating. The blessing varies with each food, and a complete list can be found. Okay, we know about the brachot, okay. And he's going to go into the blessings here. Okay. Which I am going to save for next week because I think this is very sophisticated stuff. But trying to treat this metaphorically, because I think you understand the dilemma he's kind of put us in. He keeps preaching unity, and then he keeps taking parts of God and calling it his essence and stuff. So, spark of the divine and all that. Okay, we'll have to bear in mind to treat that metaphorically. But hold on, we're going to start renewing the blessings. We're going to renew this with the blessings next week. But let's backtrack and see where he's brought us. So there's really two kinds of meditation that he's describing here. The first is the kind of meditation that I think he would say Abraham Avinu went through, for example, when he contemplated the cosmos and he figured out, he just intuited the connectedness of it all as being, one unified creation by a creator type of thing. So the first type of meditation is a form of that, where we are trying to take a mundane act and bring it into the big picture. Like we said earlier, this is a dish and it's going to be part of a great meal, and it's going to be a way where we praise Hakadosh Baruch Hu and perform many mitzvot during this meal. The whole picture we get here, incorporating it, so seeing how it all works together for a grand event. So we're elevating the act of washing the dish to something very important as part of a system, and then we're sitting down, and now we're going to eat at this grand event. We're making simple, it can be even lunch or breakfast, a grand event. So that's the meditation. Meditation is contemplating the connectedness of the whole, of all the acts. But the second meditation is focusing on the act of eating by itself and clearing your mind of other thoughts and seeing how that this food that you're eating is something that was sustained by God, and that you're eating it, he's sustaining you eating it, type of thing. And that because God is sustaining you through this act of eating, and it's as an expression of love for you, you can do nothing but return and say, all right, God, I'm going to return that love. And I'm going to do good things and make my life an avodat Hashem, a service to you, with the energy that I'm getting for this food. So that's like the mindset that he's talking about, which is accomplished by using our meditation skills, being able to focus on what we're doing and incorporate the cosmology of it that we did by meditating on it and seeing all the pieces linked together. Two types of meditation coming together: kedushifying meal preparation and kedushifying eating at the meal. As you can see, this man had quite the perspective on life. It's really something. Okay. Yeah, we're going to pick this up next week because I don't want to bring in too much highfalutin stuff in one class. It's just, we got to let it digest. All right. Now, let us talk about what Bhante says about mindfulness. To review a major point we said last week. Deeply buried in the mind, there lies a mechanism that accepts what the mind experiences, as beautiful and pleasant, and rejects those experiences that are perceived as ugly and painful. I believe that. I think that is and remember, this is not the same thing as Yetzer Hatov and Yetzer Hara. I do not think so at all. Um, I think that he's correct in saying that whatever this mechanism is, and I'm trying to think of the Jewish word for this, and I'm not sure if nefesh or neshama applies. I'm not sure if he's talking about neshama, but maybe. We are attracted to stuff that is good for us, and we repel stuff that is bad. I think that's true. And we could probably come up with a bunch of examples of that. Okay, so having said that, then he says something which I think is a little problematic, and I think we need to correct the way he's saying it. He says, this mechanism gives rise to those states of mind that we are training ourselves to avoid: greed, hatred, aversion, and jealousy. No, I think the mechanism is the gatekeeper to help us control those states of mind. Those states of mind come up naturally. This is where Yetzer Hatov and Yetzer Hara comes in, as far as I can understand. We have bad states of mind and we have good states of mind. We have bad inclinations and good inclinations. We have contentment and happy, or we have jealous and greedy. Okay. And he says the problem is that the negative stuff, like the greed and the hatred and the jealousy, you can make you very obsessive and compulsive. It draws you, and almost against your will, you run away with it, type of thing. And as opposed to the more positive states like happiness having less of a hold on you. I mean, how we don't really hear of people going out of their mind with happiness and doing crazy things, but we hear of people going out of their mind with jealousy or hatred or greed and doing crazy things like vaccine mandates and promoting, as Dr. Zelenko says, the poison pill, this kind of stuff. Okay, so it's not the mechanism that's causing this. The mechanism is helping us take a step back from this and say, no, okay, and the mechanism helps us become mindful, because the mechanism has a certain aversion to us being pulled away and sucked away by these states of mind. And if we're mindful, we pay attention to what the mechanism is saying is, wait a minute, I don't want to get carried away with this feeling. Okay. So these hindrances cannot arise when mindfulness is present. Mindfulness is attention to present moment reality, and therefore directly antithetical to the dazed state of mind that characterizes impediments. Impediments, he means, again, are these states of mind like jealousy and hatred and greed and stuff. As meditators, it is only when we let our mindfulness slip that the deep mechanisms of our mind take over: grasping, clinging, rejecting. So mindfulness helps us pay attention and respect that little internal mechanism that says, no, I don't want to run away with this thing. I don't want to get like that. We do not notice that. Okay, so then with all this grasping, clinging, that's going on, Resistance emerges and obscures our awareness. We do not notice that the change is taking place. We are too busy with thought of revenge or greed, whatever it may be. When an untrained person will continue in this state indefinitely, while an untrained person will continue in this state indefinitely, a trained meditator will soon realize what is happening. It is mindfulness that notices the change. It is mindfulness that remembers the training received and that focuses our attention so that the confusion fades away. And it is mindfulness that then attempts to maintain itself indefinitely so that the resistance cannot rise again. Thus, mindfulness is the specific antidote for hindrances. It is both the cure and the preventive measure. I think that makes a lot of sense. So when we do this meditation and we develop mindfulness, like up, I'm aware of this thought, up, I'm aware of this feeling, up, now I'm going deeper, I'm aware of the state of mind that's developing, up, I'm aware I'm getting carried with the state of mind, but now I'm aware of it, so now I'm going back because I don't want to be carried away by the state of mind. All those levels of mindfulness that we are developing help us escape from the suction of what he calls these hindrances, of these states of mind that make us compulsive. So you could see how important are the skills we are developing when it comes to, like what Rabbi Kaplan is saying, because you have choices. If you are sitting there washing your dishes and you're thinking, I can't stand this person, or blah, 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 getting yourself all worked up, blah, 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 not being, squashing your mindfulness, letting yourself get carried away with stuff, you are not going to be able to treat that act as that mundane act, and not going to be able to elevate it and make it and appreciate it as being part of a whole series of events that can be used to get you close to God. You see? So the skills we're developing are enabling us to do what Rabbi Kaplan is prescribing and get closer to God here. That's how essentially important they are. And that's why self-mastery is absolutely critical for fulfilling the Jewish purpose, which Rabbi Kaplan keeps saying is, getting closer to God. So, and Bhante is doing a really good job of illustrating what it is we have to learn here. So we'll wrap up with him. Fully developed mindfulness is a state of total non-attachment and utter absence of clinging to anything in the world. If we can maintain this state, no other means or device is needed to keep ourselves free of obstructions, to achieve liberation from our human weaknesses. Mindfulness is non-superficial awareness. It sees things deeply, down below the level of concepts and opinions. This sort of deep observation leads to total certainty, a complete absence of confusion. It may manifest itself primarily as a constant and unwavering attention that never flags and never turns away. This pure and unsustained investigative awareness not only holds mental hindrances at bay, it lays bare their very mechanism and destroys them. You could see, hey, this jealousy is not for me. Mindfulness neutralizes defilements in the mind. The result is a mind that remains unstained and invulnerable, completely undisturbed by the ups and downs of life. So you don't become a robot, though. You don't become a non-caring being. You stay at the center of the cyclone type of thing. So you could see, if you take a look even at the 10 Commandments, how important mindfulness is, like shall not covet. If you get carried away with, you got to have this kind of self-control to not be coveting everything the Torah tells us not to be coveting here. So if you don't have that kind of self-control, you're going to be coveting 24/7. So again, the stuff that he's teaching us is enabling us to do the mitzvot and observe, to do what we got to do and not do what we can't do. So that's why we're doing this. Next week, by the way, we're going to pick up on what Bhante says about mindfulness versus concentration. Okay, we will stop the share. And we will stop the recording.